Welcome to today's Explainer. Okay, I want you to picture this. It's a cold, rainy October night in Chicago. The luxurious Grand Heights Hotel is standing quietly right in the heart of downtown. Most of the guests, they're sound asleep. The grand lobby is basically completely empty. But tonight, this hotel is about to become ground zero for one of the most baffling mysteries in American true crime history. Get ready, because we are diving into the famous case known as the Silent Witness of Room 307. Now, the setup here, it's literally the stuff of classic detective fiction, but this actually happened in real life. Imagine a perfectly locked room, up on the third floor. Hotel staff hear this terrifying scream, they rush up, but they can't get in. Security literally has to break the door down. And inside, they find 45-year-old businessman Michael Carter lying lifeless on the floor. But right away, there is a massive, impossible problem facing the police. There is absolutely no way the killer could have left that room. Section 1. The Locked Room Mystery. So, to understand an impossible puzzle, we really have to establish the facts. What did the investigators, led by the highly experienced detective Daniel Brooks, actually find when they arrived? Let's track the breadcrumbs through the timeline. Security footage confirms that at 9:48 p.m., Michael Carter enters room 307 completely alone. No one else is seen in the hallway. Now, what's really fascinating here is how they pinpointed the time of death. Detective Brooks finds a silver pocket watch just sitting on the desk. It had stopped dead at exactly 10:17 p.m., and the forensics team later confirmed this was the precise estimated time of death. Finally, at 10:42 p.m., 25 minutes later, that terrified scream echoes through the hotel. But here is where things get truly baffling. The door? Securely locked from the inside. There were no open windows. The room was in absolutely pristine condition, no broken furniture, literally no signs of a struggle whatsoever. And to top the whole thing off, there was no obvious weapon left behind. So, what does this all mean? How does someone commit a murder, leave absolutely zero weapon, and vanish into thin air from a room locked from the inside? Seriously, how could anyone possibly pull this off? Section 2. Motive and an alibi. You know, when you're faced with a how that seems downright impossible, you usually have to start by investigating the who and the why. You gotta look at the key players. On one side, we have our victim, Michael Carter. He's a successful tech businessman who, as investigators quickly figured out, was on the verge of exposing massive financial fraud within his own company. And on the other side, we have Ryan Mitchell. He's Carter's business partner, and witnesses were saying that they've been having these frequent, bitter arguments. So Mitchell is the obvious prime suspect, right? Well, wait, he has an ironclad alibi. He claimed he was across town at a charity event, and the security footage from that event completely backs him up. He definitely wasn't at the Grand Heights Hotel. 1 week passes, zero breakthroughs. I mean, you can imagine the intense frustration of the Chicago police here. They have an impossible crime scene and a prime suspect with a perfect alibi. It's a total dead end. But then, a vital clue pops up from a really unexpected source. A hotel housekeeper mentions something kind of weird. 3 days before the murder, a man wearing a baseball cap was just hanging around the hotel. He never actually rented a room. Instead, he spent hours walking around asking really specific questions about maintenance areas and emergency exits. Section 3. A tiny, silent witness. Okay, this right here, this is the turning point. This is where the case breaks wide open. Detective Brooks just knows this mysterious man is the key. The description alone isn't enough to identify him, but the detective follows his gut. He goes back to room 307 to look at that impossible locked room with a totally fresh set of eyes. Which brings us right back to the ultimate question. How did the killer escape? I mean, put yourself in Detective Brooks' shoes for a second. You know the door was locked from the inside. You know the windows were totally shut, so where do you even look? While Detective Brooks meticulously inspected every single inch of that window frame, and he found it. He discovered microscopic traces of steel inside of nearly invisible scratch on the metal edge of the window. It is absolutely fascinating to me that this tiny, microscopic detail, I mean a scratch so small you'd literally walk right past it, was the exact thread that unraveled the entire impossible illusion. That little scratch, it led investigators to look right outside that specific window, where they discovered an abandoned service elevator, hidden behind the hotel. Apparently, it had been out of service for years. Inside a maintenance passage connected to this old elevator, they found a thin steel cable completely hidden behind a wall panel. Suddenly, all the physical pieces of this impossible puzzle are connecting perfectly. Section 4. The Hitman's Escape Plan. We finally have all the pieces to see exactly how this impossible locked room was staged. Let's systematically walk through the sequence of events. Step 1. The killer didn't enter after Carter. No, he was already hiding inside the room beforehand. Step 2. When Carter walked in alone at 9:48 p.m., the murderer attacked. Step 3, and this is the crazy part. The killer exits the room, and using that specially designed steel cable fed through the window mechanism, he literally manages to lock the room's interior deadbolt from the outside. Finally, step 4, he just escapes completely unnoticed through the maintenance passage and down that abandoned service elevator. And this brilliantly illustrates how an impossible locked room was actually just a meticulously staged mechanical trick. Section 5. The truth leaves a mark. Now, as you might guess, uncovering the how inevitably points the police directly back to the who. Because let's be real, pulling off an escape plan this deeply sophisticated requires some highly specialized skills. Detectives immediately dig deeper into our prime suspect's finances, Ryan Mitchell. And boom, there it is, $250,000. This was a series of completely secret payments Mitchell made. The motive was clear as day. He paid this exact amount to ensure his business partner, Michael Carter, was silenced before he could expose the years of financial fraud that would completely destroy Mitchell's business empire. So, who actually received that massive payday? The money went to a man named Jason Reed, and he wasn't your standard everyday criminal. He was a former military contractor and a covert operations expert. He had extensive experience with surveillance equipment. He was the man in the baseball cap who spent weeks studying the hotel's blind spots. Ryan Mitchell hired him precisely because Reed had the unique expertise to execute a flawless mechanical murder and stage this whole impossible room. Of course, Jason Reed initially denied the whole thing. He truly believed his perfectly planned murder would remain unsolved forever. But the forensic evidence definitively placed him near the hotel, and eventually, he confessed. He laid out the entire plot. Both Ryan Mitchell and Jason Reed were arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Just a few months later, a Chicago court handed down the final judgment for both of them: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The perfect crime was perfectly solved. As reporters gathered outside the courthouse, they asked Detective Daniel Brooks how on earth he managed to solve such an impossible case, and his response perfectly captures the core of this explainer. He just smiled and said, "Every criminal believes they've hidden the truth. But somewhere, somehow, the truth always leaves a witness behind." That tiny, almost invisible scratch on a metal window frame was the exact silent witness that brought down an entire criminal empire. Which brings us to a final, provocative thought to wrap things up. If a microscopic trace of steel on a window pane can unravel a masterfully planned murder and literally solve the impossible, what invisible silent witnesses do our actions leave behind every single day? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into the silent witness mystery satisfied your puzzle-solving curiosity as much as it did mine. Keep questioning the impossible, keep looking closely at the details, and I will see you next time.